Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Boxes and Briefs podcast with me, your boy. Thanks again to everyone that watched last week. Thanks again for all the comments. Grateful as usual. I'm taking them under consideration, I swear. I know a lot of you told me to basically cut up the podcast, so to have the boxing part separate and then just release the rants as their own videos. There's one issue with that. None of you would watch the boxing parts, and that's kind of why I do this whole thing. So I'm thinking about it. We'll see. Maybe it'll be like another channel or something. Because like I love doing both. I love doing the boxing bit. I love doing the breakdowns. And I love doing the rants. So we'll see. Maybe we'll split it up. For now, I'm gonna keep them together. So suck it. Today. Right, I feel like my outfit is very appropriate because we're going to talk about Formula 1 and we're going to talk a lot about boxing. There's so much good boxing. Yay, boxing. We're also going to preview UFC 236, which is happening tomorrow morning, my time. That's a sick card. A lot of good shit is happening in the world of fights. A lot of good shit is happening in the world in general. There's one thing that I think is terrible, and that's why there's a difference in my fucking set. Okay? Notice this. I'll get to that later in the episode. Anyway, we're gonna kick it off with a review of the action this morning, and then a preview of Shields Hammer and Holloway Poirier. So the best way I can describe Vasily Lomachenko is to steal something from Steve Kim from ESPN.com. He calls him the Baryshnikov of boxing, and that's very appropriate, right? Because he doesn't just fight. He punches you while dancing around the ring. He's literally doing ballet and beating the crap out of you. So last week on the podcast, I was talking about how he struggled at lightweight, how his ceiling is lightweight. His ceiling is still lightweight, right? But what he said after those fights with Linares and Pedraza, where he struggled a bit, okay? Like, he still won handily, but he did have a bit of a challenge. He said that he had torn something in his right shoulder during the Linares fight, and he couldn't have surgery before the Pedraza. And like, here's the thing. Boxers, when they don't do well, like, they can say, oh, it was injuries, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're in a fighting sport, you're gonna be injured. So it's not, I don't really take it as an excuse most of the time. I don't really say like, okay, next time he'll be better. Just because it's a constant thing. He has surgery to fix his right shoulder. And then in the fourth round, he hits him with the most beautiful right hook. It was just so short. He put him out on his face. He was out cold. Look, Anthony Crolla is not a bad fighter by any means, right? He is a tough out for any lightweight on the planet not named Vasily Lomachenko. Lomachenko made it look like this was Anthony Crolla's first time putting on gloves, his first time walking that damn ring, his first time getting punched in the face. He just embarrassed him. He embarrassed him for 3 rounds. Apparently there was some controversy for something that happened in the 3rd round. Jack Reese appeared to stop the fight, but really he was giving the guy a standing 8 count. Jack Reese is by far and away the best referee in boxing today, because there are so many times where I see someone just out on their feet, only being supported by the ropes, and the referee never calls a standing count. And you know what? Jack Reese did it. No controversy on my end. I thought it was perfect. He made the exact right decision. Great fight, great officiating, no complaints. On the undercard, you had Gilberto Ramirez going up to light heavyweight, knocking out or scoring a corner stoppage of Tommy Karpensi. Don't care. Ramirez, fight another title holder at 168 or fight a title holder at 175. You get this one fight to acclimate to 175. I do not care about your career because you have not fought anyone of any note. Anyway, moving on to the previews. Okay. So tomorrow morning, we definitely are going to have the highest quality matchup in women's boxing ever, right? This is a fight between 2 decorated amateurs, 2 decorated pros. They both won titles early in their careers. They both went up a weight class, won a title there, came back down. They're both undefeated. They're both pretty terrifying, like for their opponents. So what I wanted to do is to go into a quick deep dive into each one of them and then just give you my thoughts on how the fight's going to play out. So obviously I'm talking about Christina Hammer versus Claressa Shields. I think this is going to be a good fight. I think this fight is gonna turn some heads. I think this is actually going to create some new fans. I'm looking at this fight as something analogous to Ronda Rousey's first fight in the UFC, which really put women's fighting on the map in MMA. I'm looking at it like that, and I think that if one of them wins, it's probably better in the long run for the sport, but I don't think necessarily that she will win. Anyway, you have Claressa Shields, the first American to get 2 gold medals in a row for the USA at the Olympics. She's basically won gold medals at every level of amateur boxing. Her amateur boxing career is pretty long. It's pretty decorated. She's only lost maybe 8 times as an amateur, like pretty next level stuff for an amateur. And she did all of this before the age of 24, right? She turned pro 2 years ago at the age of 22. So she won her first Olympic gold medal at like around 17 years old, maybe 16, 17 years old, something like that. So she's pretty crazy. She turned pro. She is 8-0 with 2 knockouts, right? She's gone up to super middleweight. She's currently campaigning at middleweight. The fight will be at middleweight, but she's gone up to super middleweight. She's beaten a champion at super middleweight and now come back down. Claressa Shields' boxing style, from what I've seen, it's a bit hard to get women's fights right on YouTube, but from what I've seen, she's very much a seek and destroy kind of fighter. She's constantly moving forward. She's constantly throwing power punches. I don't really see her using her jab that much, which is weird from a decorated amateur. You'd think that she'd be using her jab more, but she just isn't. I'm not a big fan of the way she follows her opponents around the ring. I think she just sticks in their face, and like honestly, if someone was able to move away from her, she doesn't know how to cut off the ring. That could all be a load of bullshit just because she's not really faced the level of opposition that would make her use all the tools in her tool chest. Like, she's been handily beating people without using her jab. So this could all be just some garbage that I'm spewing. Christina Hammer, also a decorated amateur, not to the degree of Claressa Shields, obviously. She's won national level gold medals. She turned pro in 2009. So she has 10 years of pro experience to Claressa Shields 2, right? And she's very much been learning on the job, and she's, I definitely think, getting better. Christina Hammer is 24-0 with 1 no contest. She has 11 knockouts on her resume. And she's very European in the way she fights, and like if you're a fight fan, you would know this. European fighters tend to stand up tall, like they'll tuck the chin, but they'll stand up tall and then just jab and then come in, right? Like the jab is the most important part of any boxer's arsenal, but European fighters very much rely on it. It's the first and only weapon that they go to before they set up anything else, right? She also moves around the ring a lot, which I found interesting. She does know how to plant her feet when she needs to throw, so she doesn't throw on the move, which might be a bit of an issue in this fight, but she does move around the ring pretty well. She likes to fight on the outside, but she's also really good in the phone booth, as opposed to Claressa Shields, who likes to stay in mid-range. So that's really the breakdown of both fighters. Here's kind of how I see it going down, right? If Claressa Shields can keep it in mid-range where she likes to do it, right, and if she can cut off the ring, she can definitely make Christina Hammer shy enough to not throw anything back, and who knows, she could get a stoppage, right? The thing about Claressa Shields is that she's not that strong with her fists, but she's quite strong physically, right? So she won't knock you out with one punch, but her punches clearly make opponents too shy to throw back. On the flip side, if Christina Hammer is able to stay on the outside, just keep that jab in her face, and then throw that right hand in every once in a while, just stay out of range from Claressa Shields, I think she might take it just on boxing. I think she might take it on points. Claressa Shields does like to basically put her head down and rush in, and that's sometimes how she likes to close distance and then stay in her mid-range, right? If someone's leaving, she rushes in. But what I've seen Christina Hammer do is basically do the Klitschko, which is grab someone by the neck and pull their head down, bring them in close into a clinch, right? and then she'll release the neck and hit him with an uppercut. So she's very good fighting in close. Mid-range doesn't seem to be her thing. So it's very much who can implement their game plan better. I'm gonna pick Christina Hammer to win this for the following reasons. She has a 3-inch reach advantage, right? She moves around the ring, which I think would give Claressa problems. And she has more power in her fists. Like, I don't know if she's as strong physically as Claressa, but she definitely has more power just because her knockout percentage is around 50%. Claressa's knockout percentage is around 25%. So, and I might be a bit more partial, right, to the European style of fighting. I don't know. I like it. It's a bit more fundamental. But I don't think Christina Hammer winning is good for boxing, just because Claressa Shields has a big mouth. She's really brought all this attention to the fight. And like, I don't mean big mouth in a bad way, right? She's a talker. She talks shit. She brings eyes. She gets people excited. I think it would be great for her to win. I don't think I can pick her to win though, if that makes sense. That's it for boxing. So on the MMA side of things, you have 236 happening tomorrow. I really just want to talk about the main event and the co-main event. You have Kelvin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya, which is honestly a pretty great fight. I wasn't that hyped for this fight in the beginning just because Kelvin Gastelum for me is a blown up welterweight, right? Like, I think he's a bit too small for middleweight, but I think he carried up his power well. I think he could definitely still be better at welterweight. Like, I know he doesn't want to cut the weight, whatever, but like, I think it's healthier for him, and I think he's done well so far at middleweight. So like, really, the more I learned about him, the more I like this fight. Israel Adesanya is on one of the hottest streaks of all time. 5-0 in the UFC, just going on an absolute tear. This will be another fight, I think, judged by distance, because Adesanya is just so much taller and so much rangier than Kelvin Gastelum. And he's good at keeping guys at the end of his punches, and he's good at dictating distance. Kelvin Gastelum has the wrestling credentials, so he could be trying to close in distance and then maybe like hug him up against the fence, take him down. But Israel Adesanya has pretty great takedown defense. So I think this is going to be a stand-up fight, just because I don't think Gastelum will go for the takedown, even though he has it in his back pocket, just because he prefers a stand-up fight. And I think even if he tries it, Israel will be able to defend. The key to victory, I feel, for Gastelum is obviously closing in distance, but he has power in his hands, and I thought that Adesanya got hit a little bit too much against Anderson Silva. And here's the thing, Anderson Silva, yes, one of the greatest of all time to ever do it in MMA, the Spider, blah, 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 one of the greatest strikers. Dude's over 40 years old. If you're getting punched by a 40-year-old, right, you really should not be. Especially when you're someone with the striking credentials that Adesanya has. And honestly, I thought he got stunned a few times in that fight. Like, I had that fight, the first round and the third round to Adesanya. I had the second round to Anderson Silva, just because I really thought he was landing the better shots. If Kelvin Gastelum can just get in there and land on the button, who knows? Adesanya, if he can fight a really disciplined fight, just because I think a fight that would be pretty close is the way he fought Derek Brunson. Just because Derek Brunson, another guy with power in his hands, good wrestling credentials. Derek Brunson tried to take him down a few times, didn't work, and he kept his Adesanya kept his distance, didn't get tagged, all went well. That would be his pathway to victory. So I'm seeing this as a bit of a 50-50, because I can see either scenario playing out, really. Adesanya can get cocky, let Gastelum in, get clipped, and I can also see Adesanya just really fighting a disciplined fight, maybe taking him out early. So I can see it both ways. I'm seeing it as 50-50. The main event I'm really excited for, right? So you have Holloway versus Poirier. This is a good fight because for so many reasons. There's so many storylines going into this fight. Both guys are on hot streaks. They've been undefeated for a while. Both guys are terrific combo punchers, right? You have the fact that this is a rematch. This was actually Holloway's first fight in the UFC. He was welcomed by Poirier. He did well on the feet. He then got taken down. He didn't have any jiu-jitsu. He didn't have any wrestling. He got destroyed. But he showed a lot of promise. And then since then, he's been in there with some killers. He's been in there with probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner in the UFC right now, right? Brian Ortega. And just, he did well. You know, they were on the ground for portions of that fight, and he didn't let Ortega get him. So I think he's definitely tightened up his game. So the way Poirier won in the first fight is definitely not going to be the way he wins in this fight. I think this fight is going to be a lot more striking focused as well. Neither one of them is really known as a grappler. They both Max basically learns grappling to keep the fight standing, and then you have Poirier, who has that wrestling in his back pocket, but he prefers not to use it. He's a bit of a Gaethje. The other aspect of this fight that I find really interesting is the fact that they're both very similar, but also very different in the way that they attack the fight. So you have Holloway, who's a very rangy combo puncher. He keeps you at the end of his punches. He's constantly just shifting, moving back, moving side to side, stuff like that. And then you have Poirier, who's literally just a wrecking ball with fists. And he's just constantly coming at you, constantly switching stances so that he can keep throwing hooks, so he can keep throwing power punches, keep throwing power kicks. And both guys get more accurate as they break a guy down. So it's the way they approach it is different, but they basically get the same results, if that makes sense. So it's really interesting, that aspect. I'm going to be picking Holloway for the fact that he has improved so significantly. Like, it's honestly ridiculous. I've watched that first fight, and I've watched some of Max's earlier fights, and you compare them to where he is now, there's no comparison. Like, none at all. Max is a totally different fighter. I think he takes this. He might take it by decision. He might take it by a late stoppage, just because I don't know if Poirier's defense is all there. I think he has holes in his defense. I think Max is a bit better at just like getting out of range and getting out of trouble. I think this is an interesting fight. It'll be close. It'll be fun, but I think definitely Max will take it in the end. Okay, so that brings us on to our Formula 1 section. Qualifying has literally just ended for me, at least. The top 10 is ridiculous. I'm gonna picture, right? I'm gonna put in a picture of the top 10. You can see that it's very clearly segmented now, like by team, which is not great, to be honest. It's not great in terms of excitement, just because oh, okay, this is how they're just going to qualify from now on. Ferrari seems to have taken a step back after being clearly the fastest car last time around in Bahrain. Now they're not the fastest car. Like, Mercedes dominated the weekend in China. So again, thank you, Ferrari. You're great. This is why I don't buy your hats. What I really wanted to talk about, though, is the guy who took pole, right? Valtteri Bottas took pole. And I think this is his 7th pole, and maybe only the 2nd time that he's out-qualified Hamilton. And I love it, right? I love it because this season for me is the Bottas season. This is the season where Bottas is really going to show us what he's made of. Last season, he had a lot of bad luck. It wasn't his strongest showing, but even when he put forth strong efforts, it just wasn't there for him. This year, he's come back. He's a totally different animal. He's focused. I love it. I love to watch him race. Like, I've always loved to watch him race ever since his days in Williams. He was always the more fun driver at Williams, right? But since his move to Mercedes, he's really shown that he's not just a good number 2. He's a great number 2 to Hamilton, right? But I think this year he's going to show us that he can be a number 1. He can definitely be the world champion. So, look, I know it's early in the season, but I really like where this is going. I really like how he's possessed and how he's gonna do this. And yeah, go Bottas. So, full disclosure, this is definitely not the first time I sat down to film this rant. But the last 2 times it very much devolved very quickly, just because I got so angry. Because, look, I am probably one of the world's top 10 Star Wars fans, right? Like, I'm not super obsessed with it. I don't live my life by the Jedi Code because, first of all, I'd be a fucking Sith. Second of all, right, I have a life outside of Star Wars. But I'm definitely one of the top 10 well-adjusted fans of the franchise. Every other shirt I own is Star Wars. I have so many fucking weird-ass toys. I have, like, 7 Yodas and 3 Darth Vaders, and, like, I have an R2-D2. Like, I have all the shit. I love them, okay? They're my... This is how much I love this. I don't even use these salt and pepper shakers. I just have them. So when something happens with the Star Wars franchise, I get a bit worked up, right? I do. It's just what I do. So yesterday, if you don't know, they announced the 9th film in the official series, right? Not any of the side anthology films, not any of the Christmas specials. No, this is the 9th film in the main story arc. And I just saw the name and it absolutely infuriated me. Okay? If you don't know, it's called Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. That's so stupid. That's so stupid. So stupid. Okay? This is how I'm gonna break this down, right? What made the first 3 movies special was that it was basically some guy that was a whiny teenager just being like, I can do more, but I can't do more because I have to stick here around with my uncle, right? And then when his uncle dies, he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go on an adventure. He meets some weird people along the way, they become friends, they rescue a princess, they have a grand old adventure, they run away from the big bad. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's cookie cutter as shit, but it's a great fucking movie, right? That was meant to be a standalone, but they decided, because this is Hollywood, okay, let's make some more money off this shit. Let's make it 2 and 3. The second one was better than the first one, because it was exactly everything that we loved from the first one, just more. Just more of it. And like in a good way, and then a twist. Right? Perfect. This is all you can ask from a fucking sequel. Okay? Everything you love from the first one, with a little bit of a twist. That little bit of a twist sets up the third one. And the third one, it's not the strongest entry, but it ties up the story. It gives everyone the redemption arc. It puts everyone in a position where they're happy with where they end up. It's great. Now let's examine the current trilogy. Okay? I will be the first to say that after I saw The Force Awakens, I hugged my best friend in the cinema. I teared up and I said, Sharif, they made the movies good again, Sharif. I'm so happy we have good Star Wars movies again. Thinking about it is making me tear up again. This is how big of a fan I am, right? Here's the thing about The Force Awakens. It's basically a rehash of A New Hope. It's a rehash of the first movie, okay? First movie not in the movie timeline, in like reality time, right? And I won't begrudge them that. Right? I have seen that movie before. I liked it better before, but this was a strong contender, right? Like it was basically everything that we loved from A New Hope, just updated, and it was fun. It was a great movie. I honestly really enjoyed it. So how do you make a good sequel, right? We just said what the recipe was. You give us more of what we enjoyed with a little bit of a twist. And you know what they did? They didn't fucking do that. They didn't do that at all. They gave us none of what we fucking enjoyed. Like, there were great action set pieces in the first, in A Force Awakens, right? You have good character building. You have good relationships. Like, yeah, sure, it's weird that she can just fucking use the Force all of a sudden, but like, they do it in a way where it's just like, okay, this person is like just powerful with the Force. Fucking go with it. Like I was able to just be like, okay, cool. Yeah, no, maybe she's one of those gifted people. In the second one, they basically take what we liked about the first one and the originals and they try to play with it too much, right? You had Luke, who is the incorruptible, like Jesus Christ figure of this universe, who's just like, no, I refuse to give in to the dark side, and that was the whole crux, right, of the first story arc, like how he was just incorruptible, and they corrupt him, and they don't give a good reason why. They just do. They just corrupt him. It's just like, no, Luke, you're corrupted now. The most interesting parts of that movie were when Rey and Kylo Ren interacted. But those were so few and far between. Like, I'm not saying that that movie didn't have interesting points. I'm just saying that the interesting points were so few and far between, and then they took what we enjoyed and they just didn't give us enough of it. And then what they ended up doing, which was really the worst part of that movie, was they gave us so much filler of shit we don't fucking care about. Like, I do not care about any of the shit that happened on the casino planet. I do not care about Asian girl. I do not care about the incompetency of that fucking general not telling her fucking underlings what her damn plan was. It's so dumb. It was so prequel trilogy garbage and it was such a big part of the damn movie. I was so annoyed at the name reveal that for the first time in my adult life, I chose to watch a preview or a trailer for something that was coming up that I was excited for. Because I'm such a fucking nerd that I refuse to watch any trailers, anything at all. I barely look at posters because I don't want any sort of spoilers. But I watched this teaser. The first trilogy was cool because it was about a band of people with great chemistry going on adventures, okay, and they had a goal. This trilogy seems a lot more muddled, and for some reason it's focusing on the smallest aspects of the original trilogy. So the real reason why I wanted to do this rant in the first place was just like, an original trilogy, it's based around the Skywalker family, right? Yeah, it's a big thing. You have Luke, you have Anakin, you have Leia. They're all very important characters, obviously. The fact that they are a family is a thread throughout the movies. And like, not even the first one doesn't even have that thread. That thread is introduced in the second one and built upon in the third. But it is not the main thread by any means. It helps drive the story along, but it is not the main thread. It's not, like, the story does not stop when there isn't a Skywalker on scene. And then they turn around and they take the third movie of this trilogy and they focus it. Like, even just, if it's just the name, they just focus it on the Skywalker aspect. And here's the thing. What I loved about A Force Awakens is that it wasn't the Skywalkers. The Skywalkers were part of the universe. They had to be. They're the most important people in the galaxy, right? But they were part of the universe, but they weren't the most important people in this story. And they've been slowly shifting that through the movies. And that's not the point of Star Wars. Star Wars is about the adventure. Star Wars is not about nepotism. Star Wars is not about who the fuck has the Force powers. That's not what Star Wars is about. The best character in the original trilogy was Han Solo, and he didn't have any fucking Force powers, you dickheads. It seems like they're taking the worst parts of The Last Jedi, and they're just making them into this movie. And like, here's the thing, okay? I get from a creative standpoint that you started it off from the part that was the most like the original trilogy, and then now you're trying to make it your own. I get that from a creative standpoint, but you're missing the entire point of why Star Wars is Star Wars. You basically could have made these movies without calling them Star Wars, and they probably would have been fine. But you're taking Star Wars, you're taking the Skywalker name, and you're just making us focus on it, and that's not the damn point of the damn movies. Like, in The Last Jedi, the entire adventure is pointless. They do an entire adventure and it's pointless. And then the most interesting parts aren't even an adventure. They're conversations. Where's the adventure? The whole fucking point of the damn franchise is that they go on a space adventure. The Space Cowboys! And then in the teaser, right? In the teaser, it just seems like it's just more of that. It just seems like it's more, let's do some CGI bullshit, right? Not actually go on an adventure, take all this weird shit from the prequels and put it back in for some reason. Like, why isn't there pod racing? Pod racing was not that interesting. You know what? If you're one of those people that says pod racing was the coolest part of the Phantom Menace, fuck you. There was nothing cool about the Phantom Menace. It was a shit movie. Pod racing is gay. This is gay. Here's the thing. I don't wanna hate. I don't wanna be one of those angry nerds on the internet, right? I don't wanna be one of those people. That's not usually what I do, right? I love the franchises for a reason, and I hope it's good. That's all I can say. But at this point, it doesn't look like it's gonna be. And don't you fucking dare tease me with Ian McDermott's laugh at the end of the teaser. That's not gonna make me feel better. It's not gonna do anything, okay? Don't even. Anyway, guys, that's it from me for this week. Thanks again for watching. Let me know, actually, if you want me to start splitting up the boxing and the rants. Like, if you're enjoying the rants but not really liking the boxing, then, like, if I get enough feedback on that, then yeah, I'll just do it. Why not? But yeah, that's about it from me. See you next week, guys. Much love.